Hi, I'm going to be talking to you about racism and how it impacts the world, but more specifically, I'm going to be talking to you about the economic perspective of racism. As a group, we researched the psychological, educational, and political perspectives. However, I individually researched the economic perspective, and I'm going to discuss to you how racism is a problem by discussing unemployment rates, the criminal justice system, and wage gaps. First off, according to the Oxford Dictionary, the definition of racism is the belief that all members of each race possess characteristic or ability specific to that race, especially so as to distinguish it as inferior or superior to another race or races. Racism has been a part of society for centuries now, taking it back to the KKK, where nativists would murder African Americans and they would set fire to their churches and their homes. Hitler in the Holocaust, where Hitler would send to concentration camps people of Jewish belief, as well as people who didn't meet his physical standards of a true German. And the Armenian genocide, where the Turkish government would send Armenian people that were living in the Ottoman Empire to be killed because they were Armenian. However, racism is still a part of society today and it happens all over the world. For example, there's a female in Sweden who witnessed racism when she was in elementary school, and a teacher was part of the BBS party, which was a Keep Sweden Swedish party, and she would often ambush her and making fun of her race and her culture. And she would also read headlines on the newspaper that said, "Get them out," referring to like the refugees, and the headlines would like make fun of her race. There's also a female in Scandinavia who was a victim of racism when this man came up to her and he was screaming profanity and in a grocery store because she was of a different race than him. There's also racism in our local communities nowadays. In my community, one of the middle schools only allowed African American students to go see this black violin musical duo, and the community was very upset, so parents called, and eventually the school let everyone watch it because it was so infuriating to people. Racism is the economic perspective of racism has to do with employment and how businesses would prefer to hire people of a specific race instead of people of a different race. This can be shown through unemployment rates and how African American unemployment rates happen to be higher than white unemployment rates. According to a statistic, unemployment rate in 2015 for African Americans was 9.5% compared to whites who were 4.5%, which is almost half. It even boils down to affect youth employment rate of teenagers between 16 through 17, where black youth is 26.6% unemployed compared to the white youth that's 13.5% unemployed. This graph provided by the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows how white people have a less unemployment rate than other races such as Hispanic and African American races. There's also racism in the criminal justice system, and this has to do with the economic perspective because people are suing like the law enforcement for racist acts, which is costing the government money, which in the end is costing taxpayers money, and also because other races have more unemployment, they have less income, making them easy targets to go to jail. The statistics I'm going to give to you were provided by Bill Kingley, a law professor, and basically in New York City, half of the population is of different races such as Asian, Hispanic, and African American, and 80% of the people that are stopped by the New York Police Department are Hispanics or Latinos. And there's also racism when they are frisked. 8% of whites are asked to be stopped and they are frisked, compared to 85% of them who are African American and Latinos. And the sentences also are racist. For example, an African American is 10% will receive a 10% longer sentence compared to a white person for doing the exact same crime as a white person did. And African Americans also are 20% more likely to receive a sentence to go to prison regardless. There's also racism in the wage gap, such as different races getting paid more money for doing the same amount of job, for the same job as another race. For example, Hispanics have a decent employment rate compared to other races. However, they're one of the races that has the less, they're a race that has the less amount of money paid, the lowest wage. It's opposite for Asians. They actually have low employment rates. However, they're one of the races that is most like paid and has like higher jobs. So you can't really win if you aren't like a white race and get it like a nice medium. An example of this is an average Latino worker who would make 54.6 cents compared to a white non-Hispanic worker who would actually make $1. As a group, solutions that we came up with were for the psychological. it was to limit the amount of racial profiling in law enforcement. For educational, it was to educate people on racism. And self-awareness. For political, it was to set a good example, offer automatic voter registration. And an economic solution that's happening right now is in Europe, where they're like pairing up with other countries. That way travelers can come in and visit more. That way people get used to different races in their society. And a solution that I chose is blind interviews, where there would be no pictures, no face encounters, and it would be paper only. That way people can't be racist. And equal pay laws would be another solution, where the government would have to make it a law to have equal pay if you're doing the same amount of job regardless of race.